shows the Middle East and the Muslim countries how to be civilized, of how to be tolerant. That if an awful tragedy such as 9/11 can occur, and yet this very same country is willing under its democratic process to allow a Muslim community to build a mosque, not at ground zero, but near ground zero. I mean, it shows a high level of tolerance, and I think that the Middle East can certainly learn from that. Likewise, I mean, I don't think that Imam Rauf is a radical Muslim at all. He's a very a peaceful and peace-promoting Muslim, and it's really a shame that to confuse and to bring about levels of Islamophobia and try to generalize all of Islam into one category when that's not what's going on here.
Well, we do hear, I mean, organizations like CARE screaming Islamophobia left and right when anyone tries to link Islam with any sort of terrorist activity. Whether or not that's true, I mean, I leave that to you, Walid, and Kamal. But what about the 80% of mosques that are being funded by the extremist Muslims from Saudi Arabia that follow the extremist version or ideology of Islam that teaches to spread Islam by the sword?
Right. Those Saudi-funded mosques follow a very specific school of thought, the Wahhabi Salafi school of thought. That's a school of thought that I completely oppose. But Imam Rauf, who's building this mosque, this Cordoba Mosque in New York, is not from that school. He comes from a much more moderate school of thought.
Okay. I want to turn it over to Walid real quick, but just one last question for you before I turn it to Walid. Do you think that with the 80% of mosques that are being built that are funded by the extremist Muslims in Saudi Arabia, do you think that somebody like you or any peaceful Muslim here in the United States will have a voice once these extremist Muslims come to the West, if in fact they do?
I'm not sure where you're getting the 80% statistic from, but I've visited and worshipped at mosques throughout North America. I've had the privilege to do so. I've been engaged with national Muslim organizations such as ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America. And what I've seen is that the vast majority of mosques tend to be liberal and moderate. I'm not sure where you're getting your statistic from. But as far as these extremist views are concerned, I mean, I don't think that if they're not welcoming, and it depends on what they're preaching. If they're preaching against America, then that's treasonous against the state. And Imam Awlaki and Imam Tamimi have been arrested accordingly.
But do you think that a moderate voice can coexist with the voice of an extremist? I mean, do you think that the voice of an extremist will soon overshadow and drown the voices of the moderate Muslims in the United States?
No, far from the case. The world in general is becoming far more left. We're becoming far more liberal as the baby boom generation continues to pass off. The younger generation takes over. More and more liberal mentality is coming into play. So, I mean, I think if anything, this is a phase that will eventually run its course.
Walid, what's your comments on this? Is it just a phase that will soon pass us?
Hardly. In fact, he was asking you the question, where did you get the 80% statistic regarding the extremist mosques in America? The statistics comes from the Hudson Report. I highly recommend it. And it talks about those specific mosques in America. They've been investigated heavily. 80% of them support a jihadist agenda. Then he talked also about Faisal Abdul Rauf, that he was a moderate because he is a Sufi Muslim. Sufi Islam isn't moderate. This is a myth. In fact, if you like to see a video clip that will open your eyes about certain Sufi Muslims, you can see Imam Qabrisi preaching in Germany when Recep Tayyip Erdogan of Turkey was there with the tens of thousands of Muslim students in Germany. And he's saying, what are we waiting for? We have the Air Force, we have the army. We should rise the Ottoman power back to resurrect the Ottoman Empire even. Talking about neo-Ottomanism in Germany. Then you have Hisham Qabbani, who's also a Sufi Muslim. He says when the Imam Mahdi will show up, Christianity will cease to exist. So those are hardly liberal, as he says, and hardly moderate, as he says. He says he's a member of the Islamic Society of North America. Let's look at the record of Lu'ay Safi, who spoke at Fort Hood right after the massacre. Loy Safi states that every Muslim should assess their situation in the U.S. to see what kind of jihad they need to carry out. In other words, whether it's political jihad or financial jihad. Then he also said that Imam Rauf, since he's Sufi Muslim, that he is a peaceful Muslim. I would like him to answer how would he respond to Imam Rauf's statements in Al-Ghad newspaper in which he said, people asked me right after the 9/11 attacks as to why do movements with political agendas carry Islamic religious names? Why call it Muslim Brotherhood? Why call it Hezbollah? Why call it Hamas, Islamic Resistance Movement? I answer them this. This is Faisal Abdul Rauf. I answer them this, that the trend towards Islamic law and justice begins in religious movements like these, because secularism had failed to deliver what the Muslim wants, which is life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. The only law the Muslim needs exists already in the Quran and the Hadith. This quote, by the way, since he likes references, is in the Jordanian newspaper Al-Ghad, dated 5/9/2009, and the translation is verbatim exactly what Mr. Rauf stated. He does support Hamas, he does support Hezbollah in the Arabic language. In the English language, of course, he pleads the fifth.
Thank you, Waleed. I'd like to give Brother Farhan a chance to respond to that, and then we'll go to our next question for Kamal. Did you have anything to respond to that, Brother Farhan?
I'm not familiar with the shayukh that he has quoted, with the exception of Rauf talking about Cordoba. I mean, he has consistently and constantly damned the terrorists that have put himself. He's been very consistent with the nation.
We seem to be having an audio issue with you, Brother Farhan. I apologize for that, but we'll get right back to you to comment on that Cordoba initiative. Kamal, do you think that the U.S. is turning a blind eye toward the possibilities of terrorist attack because of not wanting to offend Islamic fundamentalist leaders and their groups? Or is it that we just still don't believe that a group of people who simply hate those whom they consider infidels still wouldn't want to harm us? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I want to apologize because the sound system, I have not been hearing Brother Farhan or Brother Waleed, so therefore I was having difficulty discerning what the subject is all about. But hearing you, what you just said right now, yes, and I believe the infiltration, the invasion by the Islamo-fascists is the higher ground, even to the higher places within our government places. For example, when you have two people condoned by the Holy Land trial within our government, and their organization worked, and they were condoned by the Holy Land trial, and now they are the right hand and the left hand of Janet Biritano, like Ali Khalifa and what so have you. These are, are making decisions today to disallow the Patriot Act to be taken in different places, like what we saw in Guantanamo Bay. Some of the Al-Qaeda people that they were being captured, they were released by this administration, and they went back home, and now only to have, camps, assault camps, even like the underwear bomber. He was sent home, and he was the Patriot Act was not used to judge him or to justify his case. So therefore now, like Waleed was saying earlier, I heard a bit of what he's saying, is we have civil organization up front, the part of Al-Qaeda, like Al-Shabaab, Al-Muhajirun, Islamic Libyan fighters, the Turkmenistan Islamic movement, all of them, those, the Genghis Khan, movement, all of them are Al-Qaeda movement. They are forefront in America right now, also fighting to advance, Islamization of this country. So now, with all this said and done, the America, I believe today, very much, as you see in our government, even the head of our security in the United States of America, when they were talking to him just recently on TV, and they said to him, Islamo-fascist or jihadist, attack in America, and he said, who? He didn't know what it was. So it is It is a doctrine that's been put out there to just delete those fundamental understanding from taking place in our world and move us into the place where there is no such a thing. But on the other hand, it's valid and it's alive and it's well, and we're seeing it happening all over, even according to what just took place in New York City. Just recently, upon Ramadan, they bust people from all over the United States. They closed the streets. And one reporter was asking these guys, why are you doing this? Why are you in the midst of the street? He said to him, as you were in our countries in the past, today we want you to see us that Islam is here in your world to stay and be present in your world. So therefore, what Brother Farhan was saying over there is complete opposite. This is ideology, this is a strategy, is done and brought about specifically to attack our culture in the name of people that they're upset overseas. And on what they're upset of, they're just tasting something that they open the door for.
Thank you, Kamal. Let's right now take a look at a clip of Egyptian cleric Salim Abu al-Fatah, who claims to say that Islam will soon conquer the West, not only Italy and Europe, but also North and South America, and that eventually the West will turn to Islam. Let's take a look at that clip, and then we'll be right back.
أمة ستعود أمة الإسلام رغم هذا الانكسار رغم استعلاء الغرب فالغرب إلى زوال كما أزال الله مملكة الروم ومملكة فارس سيزيل الله الغرب على أيدي المسلمين. هذا وعد جازم. هذه الدول التي ترونها ستدخل في الإسلام وسيصل إليها الإسلام، الخلافة هترجع، بعد كده المسلمين يعيشوا في رخاء رهيب، يا اقتصاد قوي جدا، أقوى اقتصاد هيكون عند المسلمين. معقول يا شيخ سالم معاك دليل على كده الكلام بتاعك ده، ولا انت بتقول كده كلام النهارده؟ ايه اللي حصل لك؟ انت مريض ولا ايه؟ والله ما انا مريض، ده انا بكلمكم كلام حق والله. وبعدين تيجي الفتوحات الكبيره جدا، هنفتح ايطاليا والله هنفتح ايطاليا والله هنفتح ايطاليا وهنخش اوروبا، والاسلام يخش المنطقه دي كلها، حتى امريكا يا شيخ سالم، والله حتى امريكا الشماليه ولا الجنوبيه، الشماليه والجنوبيه، الدول دي كلها هنخشها، والإسلام هيبقى فيها، والناس تخش في الإسلام بالأفواج.
Why don't you call us and let us know if this is the direction you see America heading in, and if something is not done? Will the Nation of Islam really return? And what does that mean? Only by knowing the terrorist networks and how they operate and what they have accomplished in the past can we be attentive in detecting an accurate future. We have to take a break. When we return, we'll discuss if and how the U.S. is taking part in this international jihad movement, a movement that is creeping up in our own backyards. We'll also take your calls, so give us a call. Our number is 248-416-1300. We'll be right back.
The world, Muslims saying Islam's about peace. Islam's about peace. We have no violence in us. No, Islam's about peace. The man does some cartoons. Old man in Denmark. The whole world, Muslims go crazy. Burn down embassies. Blow up places. Tear down American hamburger joints in Pakistan.